After receiving his Bachelor of Science from Seoul University in Korea and his Ph.D. from the University of California at Berkeley, John C. Lee has been active in the areas of nuclear reactor physics and engineering since 1969. He worked at Westinghouse Electric Corporation, General Electric Company, for 5 years, where he helped design the General Electric nuclear plants. Dr. Lee has been on the faculty of the University of Michigan since 1974. He recently served as chair of the Department of Nuclear Engineering and Radiologic Sciences, where he was selected by the students to receive the award for Outstanding Teacher. Dr. Lee has served as a consultant to the Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. He was a member of the U.S. Department of Energy Technical Working Group for Generation 4 Nuclear Energy Systems. He is a fellow of the American Nuclear Society. He is well qualified to speak to us sanely about nuclear radiation. Dr. John Lee, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Global Freedom Report.
Thanks very much for inviting me to your show.
And thank you for joining us. What prompted you to pursue nuclear physics as a course of study and ultimately your profession? I'm curious.
I guess as a young man, I was interested in the potential that nuclear energy can bring to the benefit of humankind. So that's really how I got into the profession. And I've been in the profession for quite a while, and I hope I can still make some contributions to this profession. And again, my goal, my dream of having nuclear energy contribute to the energy needs of the entire world.
And certainly you've had a lot to do over this last week. You've been active in this field for over 40 years. What kind of changes have you seen in terms of the public's understanding of nuclear energy, its uses and its risks?
The public understanding of the benefit of nuclear energy has been mixed for the past 30, 40 years, certainly in the United States, with the unfortunate accident in 1979 at 3 Mile Island. Public really was scared, if you will, of the potential radiation release from any nuclear power plant accident. At the time of the 3 Mile Island accident of 1979, there was a considerable concern among the public, but it turned out that worst radiation exposure anyone in the public received during the entire episode was equivalent to 2 chest X-rays. So with gradual understanding by the public of the risk involved, if you will, and the fact that in the United States, all 100-plus nuclear power plants operated very safely over the past 30 years, 3 decades. So public has been turning around, warming up to the further development of nuclear energy so that we can reduce our nation's reliance on foreign oil. As you know very well, Brent, we are importing close to 4 to 5 billion barrels of oil every year. And with the current oil price of $100, $100+ per barrel, that translates into easily $500 billion, $500 billion of imported oil we are using in the United States. So the perception has been turning around in favor of further development of nuclear energy. But now with this considerable problem we are having in Japan, I'm anxiously waiting to see how the public perception will change.
And it will be interesting to watch, even though it's unfortunate. I'm sorry we have to watch it, but the fact that it's happened now, hopefully we can get some learning out of this experience. Japan just experienced a massive earthquake, followed by a catastrophic tsunami. Much of the infrastructure of the Japanese islands has been destroyed, or at least severely damaged. 11 of Japan's 54 nuclear reactors were initially reported as being effective. What was your reaction when you first heard the news, and what is your considered opinion of the overall situation in Japan as of this point, now that, say, a week and a half has passed?
As you said correctly, the earthquake was really a historical one. Now seismologists are beginning to call it 1,000-year earthquake. It was something that nobody could have expected and could have prepared in the design and construction of nuclear power plant. So the problem was, as you correctly indicated, infrastructure was damaged. Electric power to the site was lost. That's what really started the whole problem at the 6 nuclear power plants at Fukushima Daiichi site. And as a result of the loss of electric power to the site, we call that station blackout event. That deteriorated. Of course, a number of backup systems worked, but then tsunami wave of 20 feet or something hit within I think an hour or so again, and all the backup systems were damaged. So that's how the situation got really bad. And now I am beginning to be guardedly optimistic that Tokyo Electric Power crew will be able to connect electricity again back to the site and then restore cooling to 3 damaged reactor cores and 7 spent fuel pools. Then I think they will be able to manage the entire reactor systems to cold shutdown state over some period of time. And as long as they keep water in the spent fuel pool, we should not have too much a problem anymore. There may be some burps of gases and radioactive release along the way, but eventually, over some period of time, I think things will take a turn toward a stable environment.
Can you explain to us laymen and women how a nuclear reactor functions?
In the reactor core, the fuel rods undergo fission event, self-sustaining chain reaction. In the process, generate heat. The intensity of the heat is 1 million times that of coal-fired power plant in terms of intensity, because this is the nuclear energy that is released, and then the energy is used to heat water and to turn water into steam, which then is delivered to turbines, which is connected to generators, and the generator generate electricity, which is used everywhere in the country right now.
Okay.
So that's how basically system works.
Okay, now what happens when the power goes out to a nuclear reactor?
When the offsite power, that is lost, then some of the backup systems come on. In the case of the Fukushima site, the first backup system that came on is emergency diesel generator. It worked about an hour or so after the earthquake, and then the tsunami wave hit, and diesel generator was damaged. So the next backup system that came on was a steam-driven pump that can use the steam that is still produced even after the reactor is shut down and fission events were completely terminated. And this backup steam-driven pump worked about a day. And eventually there was some kind of valve that relied on DC battery, and DC battery got depleted, and the pump ceased working again into second day of the entire problem. And that's when the reactor core began to get overheated, fuel rods got overheated, and in the process, some hydrogen was generated through chemical reaction between zirconium cladding, which surrounds the fuel rod, and water. So the hydrogen resulted in small explosions here and there, and that resulted in release of radioactive gases to the building, and a couple of the buildings basically had the damage to the rooftop, and that releases radioactivity to the environment.
And I might suggest to the listeners, if you've seen the movie Ghostbusters, you may remember they had a containment device. And when the power was turned off, all that was keeping those ghosts contained, all that was protecting them from infecting the rest of the world was gone. So this is kind of a similar thing. The containment of the energy, when the power is off, it can't contain the energy the way it's supposed to anymore. Dr. Lee, what is a meltdown? What exactly is a meltdown? I know that, all of us, we have these images of great nuclear meltdowns, and we don't even know what we're talking about. Tell us what a meltdown is, please.
May I go back a step further and say, okay, I'd like to make a distinction between melting of the fuel rod and meltdown of the core. What has happened is the melting of the fuel rod, significant amount of fuel rod in at least 2 or 3 nuclear reactors there. I'm not even sure the fractions of the damage, but significant damages have happened to these 3 nuclear power plants in Japan. The meltdown, however, refers to a situation where all of the fuel rod would melt down and possibly drop into the bottom of the steel reactor vessel. The situation here is somewhat similar to what happened at 3 Mile Island accident of 1979. There 2/3 of the fuel rods melted, and they got sort of hung up in the middle of the reactor vessel. The molten fuel rod did not drop to the bottom of the reactor vessel. So over some period of time, the crew at 3 Mile Island accident was able to keep the fuel rod, damaged the fuel rod covered, and eventually brought the reactor down to a stable, cold, cool-down state.
So would we call that a partial meltdown?
We could call that partial meltdown. But at 3 Mile Island, again, even with the severely damaged core, we learned that the possibility of really a vessel breach was very, very small. And, of course, there was no damage to the reactor vessel.
Now,
right.
Now, I apologize. I thought you were done. I thought you were finished.
Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask, during a meltdown or even a partial meltdown, is there anything that can be done to stop the spread of the radiation at that point?